Hotel, the world is always at your fingertips. CNN Partner Hotels, connected to your world.
We live in such a fast-paced world where the news has been so relentless. Historic events have happened one after the other. I think that you need that daily appointment with viewers around the world to try and sort through the news of the day. What's important? Why does it matter to me? How do I put it all in context? We follow the news as it happens and where it happens. And then we also take a step back to walk the viewer through the day's news. That is the mission of Hala Garani tonight.
I'm Fred Pleitgen in Kiev, Ukraine, and this is CNN.
You are live in the CNN newsroom. I'm Pamela Brown in Washington. We have a busy hour ahead this Saturday night, including my exclusive interview with the nation's top cybersecurity official on the expanding threat of Russian cyber terror.
Looking forward to that, Pamela. I'm Don Lemon, live in Lviv, Ukraine, where it is about 5 in the morning now, and we have seen some expanding threats of our own here on the ground. And we're going to take you through what we saw for ourselves after a Russian missile attack here in Lviv hit Lviv. We're going to do that in just a moment. And just hours after President Biden's fiery speech in Warsaw with his strongest language yet toward Vladimir Putin, we're now hearing a new speech from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, one in which he pleads for just 1% of NATO's arsenal, especially tanks and planes, as this country continues to defy the odds against Russia.
Ukraine cannot shoot down Russian missiles using shotguns, machine guns, which are too much in supplies. It is impossible to unblock Mariupol without a sufficient number of tanks, other armored vehicles, and of course, aircraft. All defenders of Ukraine know that. All defenders of Mariupol know that. Thousands of people know that. Citizens, civilians who are dying there in the blockade. The United States knows that. All European politicians know. We told everyone. And this should be known as soon as possible by as many people on Earth as possible, so that everyone understands who and why was simply afraid to prevent this tragedy.
Here's what officials in Ukraine are now saying, that at least 136 children have died in this country since the war began, nearly half of them in Kyiv alone. Just this week, Russian shelling killed a 9-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 13-year-old. And tonight, the White House is trying to diffuse comments made by President Biden in Poland earlier today, comments that sent shockwaves throughout Europe, an apparent call for regime change in Russia. U.S. officials scrambled to add nuance to the president's words, but they came from a man who's clearly seen enough from Vladimir Putin's war on the innocent people of Ukraine. Phil Mattingly is in Warsaw for us. Phil?
Pamela and Don, White House officials made clear the president had a message he wanted to deliver at the end of this European trip. It was a message that would be delivered to the Ukrainians. It would certainly be a message to Russian President Vladimir Putin. But more importantly than anything else, it was a message to Western democracies about the importance of unity and at the inflection point he now sees the world in. A message he absolutely delivered in a very forceful manner, including an ad-lib line that went a little further than most White House officials wanted.
For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
Tonight, President Biden delivering a forceful and dramatic condemnation of Vladimir Putin.
A dictator bent on rebuilding an empire will never erase a people's love for liberty.
The White House later clarifying Biden was not calling for regime change, but an unmistakable message.
Ukraine will never be a victory for Russia.
As Biden delivered a clarion call to Western democracies at the moment of the highest stakes, drawing parallels to Eastern Europe's emergence from Soviet rule.
It was a long, painful slog, fought over not days and months, but years and decades. But we emerged anew in the great battle for freedom, a battle between democracy and autocracy, between liberty and repression.
The speech, a capstone of a European swing defined by unity in the face of searing images of disaster just a border away.
Ukraine and its people are in the front lines, fighting to save their nation. And their brave resistance is part of a larger fight for an essential democratic principles that unite all free people.
Biden's remarks coming just hours after new Russian strikes in Lviv, just 40 miles from the Polish border. And as Biden's caustic view of the Russian president grows even darker.
You're dealing every day with Vladimir Putin. I mean, look at what he's done to these people. What does it make you think? He's a butcher.
And his warnings to the Russian leader of NATO's commitment grows even sharper.
Don't even think about moving on 1 single inch of NATO territory. We have sacred obligation. We have a sacred obligation under Article 5 to defend each and every inch of NATO territory with the full force of our collective power.
In the final day of an urgent and hastily arranged trip to Europe that brought Biden face to face with dozens of Western leaders, he sat down with Polish President Duda, pledging close ties for a NATO country housing 10,500 U.S. troops.
We do acknowledge that Poland is taking on a significant responsibility that I don't think should just be Poland's, it should be the whole world, all of NATO's responsibility.
And more than 2 million Ukrainian refugees. Biden meeting some firsthand.
You're so big. You're all brave.
And just hours after a surprise meeting with the Ukrainian foreign and defense ministers,
the good thing is that since the beginning of the war, I learned how to sleep under any conditions.
a face-to-face sit-down where Biden pledged even more U.S. support, a welcome commitment for a country under siege, and Western democracies facing a challenge now reshaping European power dynamics.
It will not be easy. There will be cost, but it's a price we have to pay.
And the president is now aboard Air Force One flying back to the U.S., but just because the European trip is complete doesn't mean this issue is complete or dissipating in any way. White House officials are very clear. They know it's a long road ahead. It was really the genesis of the president's decision to make these remarks in Warsaw, to underscore that the Western unity that we've seen over the course of the last 4 months, it can't just be a one-time thing or a one-month thing. It has to be sustained, not for days, not for weeks, not for months, but for years, maybe even longer, as the world, at least according to the president, has entered a very clear and very real inflection point. Pamela, Don?
Phil Mattingly in Warsaw, thank you very much for that. The mayor here in Lviv is also begging for air support after missile attacks today. We heard the attacks for ourselves from our rooftop position, and then we saw their destruction. Take a listen. We didn't realize how close those missiles came until we went to look for ourselves. This was a scene just about a 10-minute drive from here. A fuel depot hit by one of at least 2 missiles that slammed into Lviv. At least 5 people were hurt, amazingly. No one killed. The mayor says military infrastructure was also hit. But these flames burned right next to a residential neighborhood. And this is how I described the scene to my colleague John Berman earlier. But right now you can see the firefighters and the rescue people racing in and now to where this fire, really the center of this fire, to try to get a hold on it. But yes, it is chaos. We're in a situation, obviously not in the United States. Communications aren't great. We're in the middle of a war zone. So there are some communication issues and technical issues. But this is what you're seeing here. And I just really want you to hear the roar of these chemical flames. And as I said earlier, John, you could smell the smell of chemicals and smoke in the air. The mayor says these are the second attacks on Lviv this week. And Pamela, he adds that the shock of the blast also damaged a kindergarten.
But as you said, I mean, it's amazing that no one was killed in that. And, you know, Don, I'm just glad that you're okay, that you're safe. We just hope that you stay safe in Lviv. It's scary. That was just a 10-minute drive from where you are right now. Thank you.
Not far. Yep.
All right, we'll be back with you soon, Don. Well, a Ukrainian pop star is fighting for his country in more ways than once. Taras Topilia and his bandmates posted a video on TikTok with a plea to musician Ed Sheeran, asking to play remotely with him and other stars in a charity concert.
We are not afraid to play under the bombs. Through music, we want to show the world that Ukraine is strong, and unconquered. We will fight and sing for victory in front of the whole world that support us.
That video that now has almost 1 million likes at this point got the attention of Ed, who sent a message of support to the band on Instagram. And the organizers of the event, however, rejected the band's proposal. All right, so Taras is here. He joins me now from Kyiv. Hi, thank you for waking up early for us to be on the show. First of all, you are a musician. Did you ever imagine a month ago that you would be fighting for your country against a Russian invasion?
Hello, everybody. Of course, no. Of course not. Because a month ago, I was living my peaceful life with my family. We were gathered in stadiums during our tours and creating the music. So yes, of course, we were preparing for the Russian escalation, but we didn't imagine that it will be in that way, like it goes now, with a lot of deaths of Ukrainian people, with attacks on the cities and totally fire everywhere.
Yeah, and I want to get more to your music and this experience, but just on that note, tell us a little bit more about what it has been like for you as someone who is there fighting on the ground in the capital city.
So me with my band, with Antitila, with my friends, we are serving in territorial defense forces. So our main task is to evacuate the injured soldiers from the battlefield. So we like medical evacuation command and give first aid for them and transportate the injured soldiers to the hospital. So we are like saving a life, but if it needs, we can shoot, of course, because we are wearing body armors and helmets and holding guns, holding weapons in our hand, in our arms.
And we saw some of your gear in that viral video that we played earlier in the show. You posted another video saying that the organizers of the Birmingham concert said no to your proposal to play remotely in the concert. What reason did they give you, and how does that make you feel?
We're a little bit, it was a little bit upset for us. So they said that we cannot to take a part in this event because this event have like humanitarian purpose, but we are wearing helmets and holding weapons in our arms, so we are like not in context of this event. So we accept the answer. So we cannot we cannot do anything to to change their decision.
Yeah, but I imagine you've received so many messages from people who've seen the video. Tell us about that, the kinds of things that people are saying to you.
You know, it's sad for us because after we post the video, applied to Ed Sheeran, and he replied to us, and he responded to us. The thousands of people wrote to us by the social network, and they were telling us about that we will wait for this concert and we will watch this. So they will wait our performance, and the main thing is that it's like that is will be fundraising for Ukrainian refugee, for Ukrainian people who are struggling because of war. So I believe that if we can take a part in this event, much more funds can be collected, can be fundraised for Ukrainian people. So it is the main thing why we are like a little bit sad because of answer of organizers of this concert. because I believe if we can take a part, much more funds can be fundraised for Ukrainian people.
All right. Well, Taras, listen, thank you for all that you're doing on the ground. I can't imagine what the last month has been like for you, but we hope that you will stay in touch with the show and keep us updated on how things go.
Thank you. If it's possible, I want to say something at the end. Can I?
Yeah, if you could, yeah.
Yeah, so I want to say thank you for all the people of America to helping Ukrainians. It's very important for us, and the special. I want to say that part of my family lives in America a lot of time, and now my wife with my 3 kids are in America in a safety place with my relatives. So my oldest son, he's American. He was born in America, and for me, it's very important that American people are helping Ukraine. Believe we will not forget this. We will always remember what the America do to Ukraine and Ukrainian people, and it's very symbolic for us. So thank you, thank you, everyone who watching us. It is very helpful for us.
Well, that is such a moving message, and you know, I know a lot of people maybe watching this right now feel like they want to be doing more, not doing enough, and it's just good to hear that from someone on the ground. Thank you very much again, Taras, and please stay in touch.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Well, the Academy Awards are tomorrow night. Ukrainian-born actress Mila Kunis is set to present and is expected to honor the country. But will the Oscars leave it at that? Academy Award winner Sean Penn spoke to CNN from Poland this afternoon and said this about what he'll do if Ukrainian President Zelensky is not invited to speak.
I would encourage everyone involved to know that though it may be their moment, and I understand that, to celebrate their films, it is so much more importantly their moment to shine and to protest and to boycott that Academy Awards. And I myself, if it comes back to it, when I return, I will smelt mine in public. I pray that's not what's happened.
No word yet from the Academy on an invitation to President Zelensky or Sean Penn's talk of boycott. Still to come on this Saturday night, new information coming into CNN about the circumstances of rock drummer Taylor Hawkins' death. Also ahead, part 2 of my exclusive interview with U.S. Cyber Chief Jen Easterly. I ask her to explain how all Americans are vulnerable to Russian hackers. And dark glasses, slow-mo walking, and plenty of hysterical hugging. Just another day in the Hermit Kingdom. You're in the CNN Newsroom.
Egypt is developing a sustainable and inclusive transportation network to improve mobility across the country. By ensuring affordability and accessibility to public transport systems and reducing carbon emissions. It is responsibly connecting communities like never before.
this is the result of one single blast.
3.3 million Ukrainians have now fled this country.
You don't have to go far to find a family who has been displaced.
We just heard an air raid siren ring out.
We run down for cover. It is hard to imagine life returning here.
In Kiev, Dnipro,
Poland.
This is CNN.
On this month's Living Golf, preview the upcoming Masters. Hear from the 2020 champion and former world #1, Dustin Johnson.
For me, growing up as a kid, everything about Augusta is special.
Plus, journey across Ireland for a look at courses designed by iconic architect Dr. Alistair Mackenzie.
Join me, Shane O'Donoghue, for this month's Living Golf.
Today on CNN, in association with Gulf Saudi. On New Frontiers. Go beyond your world. Journey to different lands and discover unique cultures. Uncover bold stories about business, innovation, and hidden gems. This month, Bangladesh. See an eco-friendly alternative to plastic bags. A new take on tea. And meet a fashion designer who's on the rise. New Frontiers, today on CNN.
Coronavirus. To get daily news updates in your inbox, sign up for the CNN newsletter. Coronavirus. Fact versus fiction.
We are following breaking news this hour on the death of Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Taylor Hawkins. The longtime drummer for the Foo Fighters died Friday while on tour in South America. He was 50 years old. CNN entertainment reporter Chloe Melas joins me now from New York. So Chloe, the news tonight is coming from officials in Colombia. What are they saying?
Pamela, so the Colombia Attorney General's office has just released their preliminary toxicology report. They're calling it a forensic medical study. So what they've done is a urine toxicology test that was carried out on Taylor, and they claim that 10 substances were found, among them THC, tricyclic antidepressants, opioids, and other substances. Now, the Attorney General's office has said that they're going to continue to investigate his cause of death in a, quote, timely manner, and there are just so many questions left unanswered. I've reached out to the family and to their publicist for comment. We haven't heard back. We just know that everyone is so distraught right now.
Yeah, so many people are, those who knew him well and those who didn't, those who were fans, you know. What kind of reactions have celebrities had to Hawkins' death?
I don't think it's possible right now, Pamela, to go on Twitter or Instagram and not see something in your feed about Taylor Hawkins, whether you're a fan who saw the Foo Fighters in concert like myself when they opened MSG in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, or whether they knew him personally. Miley Cyrus posting a photo on her Instagram stories, a black and white picture of Taylor, writing, "This is how I will remember you." And she said that her show tonight in South America is dedicated to him. Travis Barker, drummer from Blink-182, writing, "I don't have the words. Sad to write this or to never see you again," adding, "To say I miss you isn't enough." And he talked about how Taylor gave him the, confidence to actually pursue his dreams as a professional drummer and go on. And they ended up touring together, Blink-182 and Foo Fighters. Mick Jagger writing, "So incredibly sad to hear of the passing of Taylor Hawkins. My thoughts are with his family and the band at this time." And Questlove writing, "I'm so sad about this man. Coolest dude ever. God bless and comfort his family, his bandmates, his friends, and all his loved ones." Pamela, everyone is talking about how compassionate he was, how he was always happy, his kindness, and of course, his unparalleled talent.
Yeah, and you mentioned his compassion. This sums it up, this story, right? Right before Hawkins' death, he made a 9-year-old little girl's night. Tell us more about that.
Oh, this is such a good story. So Taylor Hawkins, he was in Paraguay recently for a music festival that ended up being canceled due to really terrible weather. Miley Cyrus, her plane was like struck by lightning on her way there. And it was this big music festival where all these celebrities were in town to perform, like Machine Gun Kelly and others. And so he's in his hotel. The festival has been canceled. And this 9-year-old little girl named Emma Sophia, she's a drummer. And the Foo Fighters inspired her music career that's just budding. And she goes and she sets up her drum kit right in front of his hotel, and she's playing Nirvana songs, she's playing Foo Fighters songs. And if you remember, if you don't know this, Dave Grohl, the frontman for the Foo Fighters, he was the drummer for Nirvana. So that's why she was playing those songs. And so after about 30 minutes, Taylor, he heard all the commotion, heard the people cheering, and he came down and he made his way through the crowd. And he found Emma Sophia and he spoke to her. Her father spoke to CNN telling us that it was the greatest night and day of her life, and that she'll never forget it. And he took a photo with her. So needless to say, she's absolutely devastated that just a few days later, he tragically died. But again, this was the kind of man that Taylor Hawkins was. And he leaves behind children of his own and his wife and many, many people that are grappling with this new reality. You know, they were supposed to play at the Grammys next weekend, Pamela. That was just announced. So it's an incredibly tough time, and more information is going to be coming out as to what happened.
Yeah, and I know you'll be bringing us the very latest, Chloe. So sad. Thank you. Don?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. Very sad. Thank you very much. A dictator and a butcher. Strong words to describe Vladimir Putin by President Joe Biden today. But did he go too far in saying Russia's leader, quote, cannot remain in power? I'm going to discuss with Senator Ben Cardin of the Foreign Relations Committee. That's next.
I'm Phil Black in Lviv, Western Ukraine, and this is CNN.
The world's biggest business stories in one place. Expert analysis from every corner of the globe. Marketplace, Africa, Asia, Europe, and Middle East. With CNNBusiness.com.
Once-in-a-generation opportunity.
Technology, innovation, business.
You can help the refugees from Ukraine. Join the over 70,000 who've already raised millions for food, shelter, and more. Explore CNN.com/impact. Click to take action.
I'm Jim Bitterman in Paris, and this is CNN.
A butcher, a murderous thug, a pure thug, a murderous dictator, a war criminal. President Joe Biden has called Vladimir Putin all of that. But what he said today really caught the attention of a lot of people, especially some people in Russia. So with me now, Democratic Senator Ben Cardin. He joins me from Washington. He sits on the Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thank you, from Baltimore, as a matter of fact. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I want to get right to President Biden's message on Vladimir Putin. This man cannot remain in power. Those are the words that people were paying attention to. The White House insists that he wasn't calling for regime change. What do you think? What did you think when you heard him say that?
Well, Don, it's good to be with you. Mr. Putin should be at The Hague being tried as a war criminal. The atrocities that he is personally responsible for, it's clearly up to the people of Russia as to who their leader will be, or should be. But clearly, Mr. Putin needs to be held personally accountable for what he has done. He has just crossed so many lines in his actions, including the unprovoked attack, but the manner of targeting civilians, what he's done with bombing shelters, he does need to be held accountable as a war criminal.
The administration or the White House has said that the president wasn't talking about regime change. Right. But just going there with that language, what kind of a message is that sending? Are people interpreting that wrong? What do you think?
No, I think what the president was saying is that we believe that the people of Russia will determine their own leaders, that we don't determine who the leader will be for another country. But the reality is that Mr. Putin has brought this upon the people of Ukraine. He has diminished the ability of his own country and the quality of life for the people within Russia. He's personally responsible for all that. He's lost legitimacy. There's no question about it, and he needs to be held accountable.
When you hear the president warn Putin not to move a single inch into NATO territory, that sounds like a clear red line, but how concerned are you that a mistake rather than a deliberate attack on NATO on NATO land could trigger the U.S. to jump into this war directly?
Well, there's no question. We've already seen, of course, attacks very close to the Polish border. So we know that there's a high risk factor here, but we have treaty responsibilities. Our troops are positioned in order to protect the integrity of all of our NATO partners, and we'll do that. Obviously, we don't want to escalate this war. We want Mr. Putin to leave Ukraine. We don't want to see it expanded, but we have to recognize that Mr. Putin cannot challenge the sovereignty of a NATO country. We have a treaty obligation to defend that.
You know, as you know, Republican Rand Paul blocked the Senate from quickly revoking Russia's trade status this weekend. He wants changes to parts of the bill that he thinks are too broad and could impact human rights. Is there a danger in trying to get sanctions through quickly?
I was on the floor during that time. I was the one that was trying to get Senator Paul to move forward on both the trade issues and the human rights issues, the global Magnitsky. We're going to get that done. I think Senator Schumer, if necessary, will have a full vote on that. We have overwhelming bipartisan support in Congress to remove Russia from normal trade with the United States and to make sure that our individual sanction law, the Magnitsky sanction law, doesn't expire. So I'm confident we'll get both done.
The president, by some, has been said, some people are comparing his speech today as calling it Reagan-esque, the kind that Ronald Reagan delivered to Gorbachev. What do you make of that? Do you think it was that high on the soaring rhetoric meter and the message that this is sending to Vladimir Putin?
I certainly do. Look, President Zelensky has been an inspirational leader to all of us. How he's been able to motivate the Ukrainian people, the bravery of the Ukrainian people. And I think what President Biden was saying on behalf of the free world, that we stand with the people of Ukraine. and that we will be with the people of Ukraine, and we're going to make sure they have everything they need to defend themselves. So, yes, I thought it was a clear message about good versus evil, and that we're on the side of what's right, and we urge other countries that may be thinking of helping Russia recognize this is a moment in history. You've got to stand for principles, stand with the people of Ukraine.
Senator Ben Cardin, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you. Pamela?
All right. Thanks so much, Don. We'll be back with you soon. The top U.S. cybersecurity official puts in stark terms what a Russian cyber attack could do to our daily lives.
This is the critical infrastructure that runs our schools, our hospitals, our electric grids, how we get our finances, how we get our water.
What she wants you to know to protect yourself from a cyber attack next.
This is CNN. More people get their news from CNN than any other news source.
We decided a few years ago to set out on a journey which we call Enable a Fossil-Free Living Within One Generation. And you can see all around Europe that the competitive situation is shifting away from fossil fuels and into renewables and into more nuclear power. So you can see that there's a lot of innovation going on around the fossil-free technologies, and you can also clearly see that the customer demand is shifting. And today I think we can see that companies and customers are actually moving much faster than nations or global initiatives. So I think that this is a business strategy for us. It's not a sustainability strategy first and foremost. It's a business strategy and it is sustainable, but we can clearly see that through this transformation, we are actually getting increasingly competitive.
It makes a lot of sense to switch to sustainable energy. In terms of transportation, it makes EVs very attractive from that perspective. The core of electric vehicles is the high voltage batteries. We take pride in doing a lot of things in-house.
In a special ongoing season of the Tug of War podcast, CNN reporters are on the ground in Ukraine, documenting Russia's invasion, the escalating conflict, and what it means for the rest of the world. Tug of War. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Here are some of the other headlines from here in Ukraine and around the world tonight. Russian shelling damaged the Holocaust memorial near Kharkiv. This menorah honors the memory of more than 15,000 Jews murdered by the Nazis. Russian airstrikes also hit a Holocaust memorial site in Kyiv earlier this month. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian counterattack that began Friday east of Kharkiv led to the recapture of several villages. That is according to a local official. And look at this, a Ukrainian refugee with her newborn baby girl delivered in New York City. Her mother's family and friends threw a surprise baby shower for her in Kyiv just hours before she had to escape the first bombings. She hid with her sister and dog in a bomb shelter for 4 days before making it to Poland. A friend suggested she go to the U.S. with her visa still valid to give birth. Mom and baby are doing well. Good news. Good news,
You know, we could use a little bit of good news like that. What a precious little baby. Thanks for bringing that to us, Don. Amen to that. Well, now back to some more sobering news. A warning from President Biden.
My administration is issuing new warnings that, based on evolving intelligence, Russia may be planning a cyber attack against us. And as I said, the magnitude of Russia's cyber capacity is fairly consequential, and it's coming.
Just Thursday, the Justice Department indicted 4 Russian government officials for hacking critical U.S. infrastructure between 2012 to 2018. More now from my exclusive interview with Jen Easterly. She is the director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and she says even private citizens need to be on alert for malicious Russian cyber attacks.
All businesses, all critical infrastructure owners and operators need to assume that disruptive cyber activity is something that the Russians are thinking about, that are preparing for, that are exploring options, as the president said, and that they should consider themselves vulnerable and at risk.
But is your concern now that the intent is there because the Russians are feeling the squeeze from the sanctions? Is that what makes this moment different?
I think what makes the moment different is just seeing what the Russians have done with this unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, and then understanding there could be some very real consequences of that in cyberspace, particularly because malicious cyber activity is part of the Russian playbook. And so there could be unintended cascading consequences from Russian attacks, cyber attacks in Ukraine, in Europe. There could be an uptick in ransomware activity, and there could be deliberate retaliatory attacks for the very severe, very punitive sanctions that the U.S. and our allies have come together as a community to levy on Russia. And the Russian government may feel like they can use these capabilities, this preparatory activity, the exploration for potential cyber attacks, to have a real impact on the American people.
Just again, for the everyday American watching this or company, trying to understand the threat landscape, how do you explain what the tactical goals would be for the Russians to unleash a punishing cyber attack in the U.S. right now?
Well, think about it from the historical perspective, what we've seen from malicious cyber activity. Again, the goal would be to get into a network, to exploit what we call a vulnerability, which is really a glitch in code, to get into there, and they could do several things. We know that they may steal data. We know that they could disrupt data, and we know they could destroy data. So think about that. This is the critical infrastructure that runs our schools, our hospitals, our electric grids, how we get our finances, how we get our water. These are all these systems that underpin our lives. If you had a massive cyber attack that could affect how we get our water, how we get our power, how we get money, that could really impact our daily lives. What I want to make sure is that we are not stoking panic in the homeland at the end of the day, and this is why we've been very focused on preparation, not panic. But I think we need to be eyes wide open on the seriousness of the threat. As we've said several times, it's part of the Russian playbook. You saw from the unsealed indictments yesterday the statement that Russian malicious cyber activity is persistent, is severe, and as the Deputy Attorney General said, that's why it makes it crystal clear that we all need to harden our cyber defenses and have our shields up to vigilance. And that's why we are really trying to make the basics, what we call cyber hygiene, also a kitchen table issue. the basics on keeping your software updated when you get those little annoying notifications. You must update to the next level of software, and nobody wants to do that, but you have to. That's why we say, don't write down your passwords on a sticky and put it underneath your keyboard. Actually have complex, unique passwords, and get a password keeper. That's why we say, be careful about suspicious links. Why? Because over 93% of successful cyber attacks come from a phishing email. A phishing email is those suspicious emails that bad actors are trying to get you to click on so they can steal your data, so they can get into your bank account, so they can fundamentally take over your way of life.
Jen also talked extensively about the Shields Up program on the CISA website. It has tips for business owners and managers of key infrastructure, as well as advice for everyday citizens on how to be cyber safe. Go to CISA.com/shields-up for more. Well, tomorrow night, more from Jen Easterly and why she says no American is immune from malicious Russian cyber attacks. It's a video that might be funny if it weren't so scary. North Korea's dictator putting out a flashy propaganda video of a missile launch. Why some experts say the threat is no joke.
We cannot be assured that our missile defense system would prevent the deaths of millions of Americans.
It's been described as hitting a bullet with a bullet, trying to hit a warhead.
When you follow a story, you may be asked to take risks and sometimes go down a path that's not marked.
Where Iraqi troops would pre-position and these Americans would advise them.
These protests are a test for Hamas.
Any understanding between Israel and Gaza could quickly fall apart again. The protesters are just outside a military base. They're throwing rocks and security forces firing tear gas.
When you dare to take risks, you witness passion and persistence.
And they just want to get their past be processed so they can get out of this facility.
And that's where change happens.
The one thing they have in common is a determination to keep going.
We've all heard the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, fruits of all varieties come with nutritional benefits. Apples are rich in antioxidants and fiber. If you're grabbing one as a snack, don't discard the skin because that contains much of the fiber. As for oranges, they offer more than just vitamin C. They're a good source of potassium and also fiber. And a glass of orange juice can quench your thirst. Just make sure yours has no added sugars. Bananas are a source of potassium and fiber too, and also vitamin B6. Grapes of all colors are chock full of antioxidants and other nutrients. And love your strawberry smoothies? Strawberries are a good source of vitamin C, potassium, and another essential nutrient called manganese. It's a little-known mineral that your body needs to stay healthy.
North Korean officials confirming this weekend that they launched an intercontinental ballistic missile a few days ago, their first long-range missile test in more than 4 years. The ICBM landed off the western coast of Japan, prompting condemnation from the international community. CNN's Will Ripley is in Taipei. And Will, this was a new type of ICBM, and the fear is that this could mark a new era of confrontation with North Korea. What kind of new threat are we talking about here?
Hey, Pam, yeah, they have really ratcheted up tensions to the highest level we've seen since the Fire and Fury days 5 years ago with former President Trump, who was threatening to go to war with North Korea. That, of course, was followed by a period of diplomacy that has now failed. And here we are, North Korea launching their biggest intercontinental ballistic missile ever. Now, one thing that the former president used to say is that if North Korea ever attacked, the U.S. could shoot it down. But I have found, after speaking to some of America's top physicists, that that may not be the case.
3, 2, 1, ignition.
America's missile defense system, the best and perhaps only line of defense from a North Korean nuclear missile aimed at the U.S. Now a stunning warning from some of America's leading experts.
If North Korea were to fire nuclear-armed ICBMs at the United States, we cannot be assured that our missile defense system would prevent the deaths of millions of Americans.
Kim Jong-un's most powerful test in almost 5 years, an intercontinental ballistic missile. A warning to President Joe Biden and America as North Korea sharpens its nuclear sword. For years, U.S. leaders have reassured the public.
Missile defense begins here.
And America's allies
should be very confident.
Missile defense systems can keep them safe.
Easily shoot them out of the sky.
Senior defense officials project confidence. The U.S. could also shoot down a North Korean ICBM.
The defense of the homeland.
These experts say the odds of success are very low.
It's been described as hitting a bullet with a bullet, trying to hit a warhead.
For the first study of its kind in 10 years, commissioned by the American Physical Society, their conclusion, despite more than 6 decades of missile defense efforts and $350 billion U.S. taxpayer dollars, no missile defense system has been shown to be effective against realistic ICBM threats. Why is it so hard to shoot down an ICBM?
That warhead undoubtedly be accompanied by decoys and by things to fool the defense or overwhelm the defense.
A fundamental problem.
We do not see in the next 15 years that an effective defense can be mounted against ICBMs.
The current system has only been tested 19 times since 1999.
And in those tests, they've been essentially scripted for success. But even so, the tests have only succeeded around half the time.
But what about all those successful intercepts in the Middle East? What about the Iron Dome?
ICBMs are a qualitatively different threat than many of the missiles that we have read about in the news, traveling significantly higher and having potential penetration aids and countermeasures.
CNN reached out to the U.S. Missile Defense Agency. When asked about the report's findings, a spokesman cited this defense report from January. It says the missile defense system has demonstrated a measured capability to defend the United States, deployed forces, and allies from a rogue nation's missile attack, and that its most advanced radar will be able to separate the warhead from a cloud of decoys. U.S. think tank CSIS says these images show an undeclared North Korean missile base just miles from the Chinese border, a potential launch site for ICBMs.
We need to understand there is no military solution.
Former U.S. Ambassador and Special Envoy to North Korea, Joseph Yoon, believes the only option is for President Biden to take a page from the playbook of former President Trump and reach out directly to Kim Jong-un.
The longer this situation continues, more serious will the provocations be.
He says diplomacy may be the only way to keep the missiles from flying, to keep America safe. I will say, Pam, that in all of my conversations, all my trips to North Korea,